Hi everyone, we are live. The participants are just starting to tick in. We're so excited to have you here. We're just organizing the text, so we're a little bit late, but thank you so much for joining us. My name is Leslie Hendrickson. I am with the Newburyport Literary Festival. I just want to tell you a few things before we start. We're using the webinar format, so you won't see yourselves, you'll just see the participants. The session is going to last about 45 minutes, and there will be questions at the end. Please use the Q&A thread down at the bottom to ask your questions. In just a sec, in the chat, I'm going to put some information about the Literary Festival, our website, as well as our links to the our independent bookstore partners, Jabberwocky in Newburyport and the Bookshop of Beverly Farms. And that's all I have. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mike LaRosa. Thank you so much for being here, Mike.
Thank you. Good to see you, Leslie. Thank you very much. Leslie Hendrickson and Vicki Hendrickson have been the organizers of this, together with Jennifer Swissel, and we're very grateful for the ability to be here with you all today to talk about this book called Immigration and the Visual Art of Nicario Jimenez Quispe, who we have with us today. Nicario is here. Steve Stein is co-author on this book, and Damian as well. And I'm just going to briefly welcome everybody who's here today. My name is Michael LaRosa. I'm one of the authors of this book as well. But I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the origin, how this project got organized, and why we decided to do this book. And I guess you could say that after the election of 2016, we were a little, what's the word, dispirited with the way that immigrants in the country, in the United States, were being attacked by the highest levels of politicians and politics in the country. And we thought, well, there's got to be a better way to talk about immigration and immigrants in this country. There's got to be a more optimistic view of immigration that we've always had in this country. And we thought, well, why not do a book on our friend Nicario Jimenez, who for decades has been thinking about immigration and has been thinking about immigrants because he himself is an immigrant to the United States of America. And not only that, he's been thinking about it and portraying it in his creative art. His first Retablo, which Damian is going to explain what that is shortly. His first Retablo dealing with immigration was made 30 years ago. So he's been thinking about this for a long, long time. And we knew, Steve, Carol, myself, we knew that this work existed, this great body of work dealing with immigration. And we just thought, well, why not do a book, write a book, and a short book with great images inside to show people, to give people another version, another dimension on the immigrant experience here in the United States. Not from the policy wonks, not from the political people. Nicario is not a policy person. He's not an academician, but a book based on art and creative imagery. That's what we decided to do. So we had a little bit of trouble, frankly, finding a publisher, but finally our friend Susan McEachern at Rowman & Littlefield offered us a contract. We signed the contract and we put together the book in a pretty quick, pretty fast timetable, as we all know. Nicario was completely collaborative with us. He offered us all of his work to photograph, and we photographed the work and we put together this, we think, a very nice book on immigration and art. It is a unique way to look at the immigration equation. It's an optimistic, positive view of immigration. And Nicario Jimenez, our friend and immigrant, is the one who's responsible for this book. We put it together. We wrote the text, but the book could not have happened without Nicario's critical genius and artwork. So that's the introduction that I'd like to present, and then I'm going to turn the program over to my friend and professor Steve Stein, who's going to talk a little bit about art and immigration and Peru and Nicario Jimenez. Steve is an expert on Peru, having published widely on the history of modern Peru, and I'd like to now turn it over to Steve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael, and welcome to all. I just want to add one more thing about what Michael was saying about the origin of the book. We're very concerned about, all of the authors are very concerned about this. You said the treatment that our recent immigrants have gotten in the press and by politicians. And we see numbers about how many people are coming, We see it in photographs. But we wanted to find a way, we had a way, we knew we had it, to express more effectively to the public what the plight, what the experience is of the recent migrants to the southern border of the United States. And Nicario's more recent Retablo, well, not that recent, 30 years of them, do express that, and that was the motivation, I think, for really doing this book. Nicario is from Peru, and as Michael said, is a migrant himself to the United States. Migration in Peru has historically been probably one of the most important themes of that country's life for the past 100 years, at least. Peru is a country of migrants, internal migrants within the country. It's so prevalent that in a sense you could say migration has become a part of Peruvian culture, of all Peruvians to some extent. And Nicario's life epitomizes this process. It explains also his concern with the plight of migrants in this country, a theme that is so powerful and prevalent in his work. So if you put up the first slide, please. Have we got it?
Yep, I am doing that right now. Thank you.
Okay.
There we go.
No, not that one. Next one.
Perfect.
And go, actually, why don't you go up there and just say slide, go to from beginning, whatever. Okay, that's the one we want. Okay, but I want to, okay, at any rate. All right, this is one of Nicario's major works on migration, and it is a testimony to his own migration to Peru. You'll see there are 3 levels, and let's next slide. It starts with Nicario, and it's his life that is portrayed here. It starts with his life in the mountains in Peru, in a rural society, a grazing society of animals and peasants and condors in the sky, etc. But at a certain point, and I'll explain why in a moment, he has to leave, he and so many of his fellow countrymen have to leave, and go to the next slide. And they leave for Lima, leave from the highlands of the Andes for Lima. And the way that, and here's the slide, or it's a slide, but it's also part of the Retablo that portrays people getting on the truck about to leave for Lima. And when they get to Lima, next slide. Next, there you go. If you look carefully there, I don't know if you can see it well, you can see peddlers in the street. You can see essentially fighting to stay on while the police are trying to get them out of the scene. In other words, they came from what looked like an idyllic scene in the mountains to a very difficult situation in Lima. You experienced this, and this will tell you how I first met him. I didn't meet him on a street peddling, but I did meet him on a dirt street in a very poor neighborhood in Lima, making retablos. He had 1 month earlier, this is 1980, had come from the mountains, from the Andes to Lima, and he was making these retablos to be able to sell, to subsist in Lima. We became friends. We got together over the years. I had him come to the University of Miami, where I was teaching at the time. He went to other universities. He ended up living in the United States. So he migrated first from Alcamenca, up in the mountains, his small town, to Ayacucho, the main city of his province, to Lima, to the United States. And in each of these places, he felt discrimination, he experienced discrimination, dislocation, which is, I think, one of the reasons why he so ably expresses the discrimination and dislocation that our migrants who are coming to the United States or have been coming to the United States over the last decades feel. Now, the question you might have is, well, why did he leave? Why do all of these people migrate from one place to another? And let's go to the next slide. In the case of Peru, they in the early 1980s and the 1990s, a major sort of, I guess, motivator, you could say, for migration was violence, rural violence. And here we see, and we'll see a little more close up with Carol in a moment, here we see a town up in the Andes, and we see two scenes. By the way, if you look at this, and you say, if you don't look into it, and Carol will explain more fully, you say, isn't that pretty? You know, that's pretty, really nice. It is, but it's not, as you will look carefully. The top scene, we see the Shining Path guerrilla movement, the most violent guerrilla movement in the history of Latin America. Actually, we can go to the next slide, might as well, we can come back to it. Go to the next. We see that, no, I guess go back, sorry. We see the Shining Path, well, there they are. We see the Shining Path guerrilla movement invading this town, killing the few military men that are there. And then on the bottom, 10 days later, the military has come back and they're killing all of the people in the town because they say they must have been collaborators with the Shining Path. So what the story of migration for Nicario and his relatives and his friends and his people in the 1980s and the 1990s, they were fleeing from violence that totally threatened their lives because they were caught in a crossfire between a very radical and violent guerrilla movement and a very repressive and violent state. And so that explained the reason that Nicario left, and eventually, of course, he left Peru for the United States. So I'll leave it with that and ask Carol to come in, and I want to take a look, we'll take a look more closely at the scenes of his work and what
Okay, and Carol Damian is here with us. She's a professor of art and art history at Florida International University, founding director of the Patricia Frost Museum on the FIU campus, and an expert on Latin American art with a focus on Andean art and Andean colonial art more specifically. So I'm going to turn it over to Carol right now. Thank you very much, Carol.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. And I hope you can see the slides. And this particular slide will allow me to introduce the form of the retablo. A retablo is a box. You're probably more familiar with these little boxes holding nativity scenes because that's what they became very popular for in the 20th century. But actually, a retablo has a long history that goes back before the arrival of the Spanish, when pilgrims in the Andes would go with offerings to the various deities, nature deities, in their quest for beneficence, their quest for the gods to look favorably upon them and upon the herds. So they were little fertile offerings. As the years went by, they were transformed into something that was Christian, with saints, the saints that guarded the herds. And then into the 20th century, they became tourist objects when people recognized that the retablo makers, and they're very traditional, they come from family traditions, could sell these little boxes and could make some money. So they became quite popular as a result. With Nicario's boxes, what I want to really focus on is, as Steve said, yes, they look very pretty, very colorful, but within Nicario's boxes are scenes that have tremendous meaning, social, political meaning. But at the same time, they're objects of art. Just because it's a popular art form doesn't mean that it cannot be respected as a fine art. Nicario is an artist who has many, many years of experience making these very complex boxes. I mean, look at how many little figures are in them and all of the action that he's actually able to capture. And you know, he's doing this with a potato-based paste. So it's kind of like a plaster made out of potatoes and a little bit of gesso. And so he forms these with his hands and then he paints them. So it's an extraordinarily complex technique that he has mastered to capture these particular scenes. He also has a great sense of color, as you can see, of composition, of action, all of the formal elements that we use when we describe an object of art. So I hope as you look at these and listen to Nicario talk and understand the meaning, that you will also understand that he is an artist that can stand and does stand among the best of the artists. So this is not just merely a craft, and I don't mean that to put down crafts. Crafts are very important, but this is an art form that goes into the fine arts and must be recognized as such. So Nicario, do you want to, or Michael, do you want to introduce Nicario so he can talk further about how he makes these?
Sure. Thank you very much, Carol.
Can we see more of those? Go down a bit and see. No, go. Yeah. No, not. Yeah. That one. Yeah. Yeah. Just to add something here. Look at the amount of detail in the figures. No, not that one. Back up to where we were. Hayata.
You want to go back?
Yeah. Right. Number 6, 7, 8. Yeah.
Eight. Yeah. No, down.
8. Perfect.
Go down. Go down again. Well, there we are. Okay.
Perfect.
Interestingly, in the art, I mean, again, the figures are not only are they artistically very powerful, but they are also historically very accurate. One of the things that the Shining Path Guerrillas, and here we see the guerrillas, they typically recruited a number of women in the movement. And so Nicario not only is able to depict in very powerful artistic terms what was going on, but also in sociological terms by showing the role of women in the movement. So these are both artistic and historical documents of the period, which is extraordinarily powerful. But I just wanted to add that.
No, thank you very much, Steve. That's great. Okay, thank you. Now it's time to hear from the master himself. Nicario Jimenez Quispe is with us, thank goodness, from Naples, Florida, his residence. And Nicario is a world-renowned maker of retablos and artist. He is a friend of ours. We've met him thanks to Steve bringing him to the United States for the first time many years ago. And Nicario's work is in many places, including the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., the National Civil Rights Museum right here in Memphis, Tennessee, and the International Folk Art Museum in Santa Fe, New Mexico, among other places as well. So I'd like to turn the program over to Nicario. Nicario is going to speak in slow Spanish, and I'm going to translate back to English for everybody. Thank you.
Bueno, en primer lugar, mis agradecimientos a Leslie Henderson por esta presentación y a mis amigos doctores, Carol Damian, Steve Stein, Michael LaRosa.
In the first place, I'd like to offer thanks to Leslie Hendrickson for this presentation, to my friends, Dr. Steve Stein, Carol Damian, and Michael LaRosa.
Ya, y mi pareja Flora, y a mis hijos Janet, y a su esposo Ezequiel, y a Bilio, a su esposa María Lucía, y a mis nietas lindas Andrea y Ariana. Sin la colaboración de ellos, todo no sería posible.
And I'd like to also thank all of my family who has been completely collaborative in this endeavor and have helped me out. None of this would have been possible without the support of my family.
Yeah. En 1969, como decía Steve, migré de un pueblo pequeño llamado Alcamenca, la provincia de Huamanga, Ayacucho.
In 1969, I migrated, as Steve mentioned, from a very small town called Alcamenca to the province of Huamanga in Peru.
Yeah. Es como en el retablo, como Steve explicó, ese es como autobiográfico el retablo en ese entonces realicé.
So the retablo that Steve talked about of migration is autobiographical.
Ya, en los años 80 había tanta matanza en una guerra sucia que mucha gente inocente ha muerto.
And you know, in the 1980s in Peru, and there was a terrible dirty war in Peru, in my region, and there were a lot of deaths as a result of this in what came to be known as a guerra sucia, a dirty war.
Entonces, mi familia, con mi familia nos mudamos a la capital del Perú, a Lima.
And so at that time, we decided, as my family, as Steve mentioned, we moved to the capital city of Peru called Lima.
¿No? Pues es como con este retablo, como Steve explicó, la matanza de una de las matanzas, que hubo tantas matanzas, una de las matanzas de Cayara.
And as we can see right there on the screen, one of the most significant massacres was called Cayara, which is the name of a pueblo. It was one of the many massacres during this time period.
Y eso era un enfrentamiento, el comunero no sabía quién es quién, si era sendero o los militares, pero hubo una matanza.
Yeah, it was a general massacre that took place without being able to distinguish between people who were actually affiliated with Sendero Luminoso and those who were just mere civilians.
En 1980, ya en Lima, en un pueblo joven, pobre, no, sin agua, sin luz, en un cerro, no, mi taller con esteras y cartones.
In 1980, I was living in a very poor neighborhood of Lima without water, without kind of a pueblo joven, a new town where recent migrants would arrive to. And I was living there at the time in 1980.
Yeah. Por primera vez llega un gringo a mi taller, ¿no? Que es Steve Stein, ¿no? Al ver mis retablos con temas políticos y temas sociales, ¿no? que le llamó la atención, y eso me inspiró mucho más seguir trabajando.
And for the first time, a gringo, Steve Stein, arrived to my taller. It was the first time that an American had ever come to my workshop in this poor neighborhood of Lima. And this particular person, Steve Stein, was looking for retablos that reflected social and political themes, and I was making them at the time. And the fact that he was interested in them sort of inspired me more to do more work.
Yeah. Y así mismo, él me invita, me abre las puertas de Estados Unidos para hacer la primera exposición en la Universidad de Miami, Florida.
And Steve Stein is the one who opened the doors to me to be able to have my first exhibition in the United States at the University of Miami in Florida.
Yeah. Al llegar a este país, ya, ¿puedo ponerle el next slide, por favor?
Next slide, please, Leslie. We're going to go.
No, okay, yep. Okay. Al llegar a este país, el norte, el sueño americano, no fue fácil, como sabemos todos los emigrantes, ¿no?
And you know, arriving to the north is a dream, el sueño americano, the American dream. It's very difficult for migrants to arrive to the United States, el norte, and that's what's depicted here in this particular retablo.
Uh-huh. Yo pensaba que solo la entrada al norte era por Miami. No, había otro tipo de emigración. Cuando viajé a California, vi otro tipo de emigración, y eso me llamó la atención. Por eso trabajé este tema. Ese es mi primer retablo, es el Border Patrol.
So, you know, I thought that because I came to the United States on an airplane to Miami International Airport, I assumed that this was the way all migrants came to the United States. But once I lived for a little while in Southern California, I realized that there was another form of migration too, a much more difficult journey that I've depicted in this retablo from 1980 called Border Patrol or Crossing the Frontier.
Yeah. No, next slide. Ahí podemos ver todo el detalle, como el emigrante no cruzando de todas formas.
So you can see here the details associated with crossing the border and the difficulty of crossing as well. All of this is depicted in this particular retablo.
Yeah. Next slide.
Next. Okay.
Yeah. Ahí podemos ver con la policía, con el Border Patrol, con los militares, es todo el dilema, ¿no?
So, and you can see here that at the time, again, this is from 1980, that there was quite a bit of tension between the Border Patrol, police, and people crossing into the United States, themes that which we're all familiar.
Ya radicado aquí en Florida, ya, empecé a trabajar con más profundidad, a ver la vida diaria de los emigrantes.
And you know, once I moved to Florida, to Miami and then later to Naples, I decided to work with more depth, with more precision on the daily life of the immigrant experience here in the United States.
¿No? Tenemos el próximo slides.
And then next slide, please. Right.
Okay, next one.
This one. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So, ese es yo lo llamo, el título es La lucha diaria del inmigrante.
And, you know, I've titled this particular piece, La lucha, the daily struggle of the immigrant. And this is from the year 2005.
¿Cómo podemos ver el detalle?
Can we see some detail on this? The next one, Leslie? Very good, thank you.
Cómo el inmigrante trabaja en la construcción sin ninguna protección, sin seguro, sin nada, ¿no?
And you can see here the immigrants working in construction, something we've all probably seen in the United States, working without very much protection, without very much help or support, but just working to build things without on their own. This is what I think.
Next one. No, el detalle, como siempre, el trabajo duro en el sol.
You can see the people working under very difficult circumstances in the heat of the daily sun.
The next one. No, ese es el tema de los jornaleros, o sea, los emigrantes que buscan un trabajo o después de fin de semana y buscan para mandar por el banco su dinero a su origen de país.
And this is an example of the day workers that we see here in the United States quite a bit. People who look for work on a daily basis and make sort of short-term contracts with people. You can see them jumping into the truck there to go work. And the reason they're working is so that they can send money back to loved ones back home. That's what we have here.
Yeah, the next slide.
Next slide, please. Thank you.
Es como los que trabajan en el campo, ¿no? Cosechando diferentes clases de verduras y todo, pero estos trabajadores sin protección de las insecticidas, de las fumigaciones.
Right, and here we have agricultural workers, obviously people that we're grateful to, that are working today. I'll just add that as an editorial comment. We have agricultural workers here depicted in this retablo and working in very difficult circumstances without any protection whatsoever from the fumigantes, don't know that word, aerial fumigation that is toxic. Yeah.
Next one.
Please.
¿No? El detalle de todos los inmigrantes.
This is a detail from the work of the people harvesting for us.
No. Los inmigrantes, a pesar de tantos sacrificios, humillaciones, discriminaciones.
And you know, immigrants, despite significant humiliation, significant sacrifice that they have to go through.
No, es como también triunfamos en este país, como pueden ver en el retablo, el triunfo latino.
And you know, despite the humiliation, despite the difficulty, right? The immigrants have triumphed here in the United States.
The next slide.
Success, and we can see that in the next slide. And that's what we have here, which is called Triunfo Latino.
Ajá, o sea, trabajamos en diferentes ramas, en restaurantes, hoteles, ¿no? Estudiamos, nos graduamos y recibimos premios. Ese es el premio Grammy.
And so, what I decided to depict in this retablo, that the Latin Triumph from 1999, is the reality of immigrants working in various places in various sectors of the economy, in hotels and restaurants, and even people who study, people who triumph and win the highest prizes in art, the Grammy Award. All that's depicted in the Latin Triumph.
Next. Podemos ver el detalle. Mira como el trabajo en los mercados, en las, como dicen, las pulgas, ¿no?
Yeah, and here we have a detail of people working, you know, selling things on the street. This is an example of Latins, of immigrants working on the streets here in the United States.
Next one.
Next. Okay.
Yeah, es de los restaurantes.
And this is an example, obviously, of Latins working and immigrants in general, not necessarily just Latins, working in restaurants and bars in the United States.
The next one. No, es los hoteles.
And they're working in the hotels, as you can see.
Yeah, the next one.
Thanks.
This is el Grammy.
This is the Grammy Awards, right? With the highest award for music, being awarded to somebody from Latin America, right?
Yeah.
The triumph, the Latin triumph.
Y ahora a los emigrantes nos utilizan en campañas políticas. Piensan que somos delincuentes, asesinos y violadores.
But yet, in American politics recently, we've been seen or used for political purposes and called murderers and rapists and criminals, and that's just a rhetoric that's untrue.
Yeah. Pero los inmigrantes aportamos cultura, música, comida, como yo aporto con mi arte.
You know, immigrants, they support us. They support us in terms of music, art, culture, agriculture, just as I'm here helping out this country by making my art.
The next photo.
Next one, please. Okay. That's
Grammy. Okay. No, como alguien dijo, si hoy me deportan, mañana estoy aquí, aunque construyan el muro más alto.
And people say, you know, if they deported me tomorrow, the next day I'd be back. Even if they make the wall as high as 100 meters tall, I'll still be able to come back.
Ese es un retablo, el penúltimo retablo. Bueno, sí, voy a seguir trabajando y sigo trabajando. Este es sobre el muro.
Right, and this is a retablo called The Wall. It is from the year 2015. It is 5 years old, and it's one of my most recent works dealing with immigration here in the United States.
¿Puede pasar el detalle?
Next one, please.
Es como el emigrante. En este retablo represento las dos escenas, al lado americano y al lado de México, ¿no? Porque es el río, el sacrificio, toda la violencia, ¿no? Todas las dificultades.
And in this retablo, I've depicted both sides of the frontier, the American side and the Mexican side, difficulties on both sides, right? Violence, criminal activity, hope, aspiration on both sides of the border. That's what I've depicted here.
Yeah, the next, ¿no? Porque en este retablo he puesto, ¿no? Como el inmigrante cruza el río, ¿no? El río Grande, ¿no?
And here we have a depiction of immigrants obviously crossing the Rio Grande. Here we can see this clearly in this part of the retablo.
Next one.
Next, please. Thank you.
No, pues es cuando la separación de familias, ¿no? Que lado mexicano, lado italiano, hay los niños y todo.
And this is a clear depiction of what's going on right now, right? Which is the separation of families via a fence or a wall or some sort of a barrier here. On the American side versus the Mexican side, we can see this from my retablo from 2015.
The next photo. ¿No? Y aquí la que están viendo es la que están trepando el muro.
And we have people, you know, jumping over, getting over the wall, getting over the barrier, the obstacle in order to come to the United States.
No, next one. Mira, como están trepando ¿no? el muro ya más sólido, concreto, pero siguen trepando.
You can make the wall as solid, as concrete, as strong as you want, but people are going to find a way to get across it. And sometimes it's by building a ladder.
On the next one. Al lado de Estados Unidos, la protesta, la militarización.
And we have scenes of protest. We see the police and the Border Patrol trying to control this border that is being quickly built, this wall. All this is depicted in this retablo.
Yeah, next one. Aunque no aparece, hay un túnel, ¿no?
Yep, and you can see it down there in the lower quadrant of this, that there's an actual hole or a tunnel that people have constructed in order to get under the wall, right? And that's actually going on as we speak too.
The next one. This is la parte, la detención de los emigrantes, ¿no? Con el Border Patrol, la lucha diaria.
And this is the roundup by the police, the daily struggle, Border Patrol, trying to chase down and arrest people who are coming into the country.
Es como un fotógrafo, puedo graficar, puedo ilustrar muchas escenas, muchas cosas, ¿no? Que con mi arte, ¿no? Es de la manera que yo puedo mostrar al público en general.
And so, you know, what I'm trying to do is record and show graphically, right, what is going on in this country, what is happening. This is my art. This is what I see in terms of the immigrant experience here in the United States.
Uh-huh. Y esto voy a seguir trabajando, estoy trabajando y todo, y esto, aunque pasamos ahora las circunstancias que estamos pasando, esto me permite más para trabajar mucho más cosas.
And, you know, I'm continuing to work. I haven't given up yet. There are many themes on which to work that involved immigration. I continue to work, and I plan to continue working, making my art, depicting the reality that I know with regard to immigration to this country.
Yeah. Bueno, muchas gracias, Michael. Yo sé que es un esfuerzo grande que han hecho Steve, Carol, ¿no? Por esto, este es el segundo libro, el primer libro también salió, ¿no? Muy bueno. Gracias por la ayuda y todo.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Carol. And I'm delighted to be working with you on this. And thank you to the public as well.
Yeah, y gracias al público, a mis seguidores, a mis fans, ¿no? El libro está disponible. Oye, así es un tema ya extraño, me publico en los festivales, en las exposiciones.
And, you know, I'd like to say thank you to my public, too. There are a lot of people I know from the festivals that I attend, and the book is available if you want to purchase it. And I look forward to seeing you all soon in future festivals where I'll be presenting my work soon, coming to a city near you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicario. Do you have anything to add, Steve or Carol?
Yeah,
Leslie.
Something. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I thought Leslie wanted to keep a few minutes for question and answer. I've seen some of them pop up.
Okay.
Leslie?
We do have a few questions. And one, Carol, was about the medium that Nicario uses. You mentioned a little bit about that. Maybe you can describe it, and then Nicario can talk about it too.
Yes, he makes a material out of potatoes and gesso, like plaster, and it becomes a clay, a very malleable clay in his fingers, and he literally shapes these little figures and all of the objects and the retablos out of this. And then he has a paint that of very natural materials that have been, you know, used traditionally. And that paint is, it's a secret, because people often ask, why does it last so long? And they do. We all have these retablos and can attest to the fact that they last, and they're perfect. The termites don't get to them. The ants don't get to them because they're potatoes, because of this secret formula paint that he uses on the retablos. And then they're put into a little wooden box.
Sí, podría añadir, bueno, mucha gente se preguntará, pero ¿por qué? ¿Dónde encuentra tanta papa? ¿No? Aquí, en el Perú existe mucha variedad de papas, ¿no? Aquí hay todo lo que es tubérculo, donde que tenga el starch, donde que tenga esa plasticidad, es muy fácil de mezclar. Ahora, estoy aquí en Florida, la primicia es, como planté yuca, con la yuca le da mucha más elasticidad, se puede trabajar. Ahora estoy trabajando con yuca.
Oh boy. So yeah, people ask me all the time, hey, Nicario, where do you get so many potatoes? And he's like, well, you know, Peru is the birthplace of the potato in the world. I think that that's true. So we've never had a problem with potatoes in Peru. But here in Florida, it's a little bit more of a problem. But I'm now working with yucca because the yucca is more elastic and it's actually a better product. So I'm now working with yucca.
Ah,
Ya,
that's
sí.
great.
Ya,
Thank you.
otra de las preguntas que el público siempre me pregunta dónde sea, ¿qué tiempo te tomas a hacer la pieza? How long you take on? How long you take on? Ya, es muy, muy difícil de calcular el tiempo, cuánto tiempo, porque tiene un proceso largo todas las piezas.
Right. And people always ask me, well, how long does it take you to make one of these things? And I say, I can't really calculate it in hours. It's many hours, it's a long time, and each one has a complete process, an intellectual process and then a constructive process that I have to go through. So it's difficult for me to say, to put an exact hour on it.
No, o sea, el único que yo puedo calcular es que para las piezas pongo que mis piezas vienen de aquí adentro, lo que siento, no pongo mucha dedicación, pongo mucho tiempo, ¿no? Y eso, si calculo cuánto es, las obras serían miles y miles y miles y miles, pero no es así.
The work comes from within me, really. It's a process that it's difficult to calculate in simple terms of hours. It would be thousands of hours. I think about it all the time, and it's a constant part of me, this work that I create.
Okay, let me add something to that. That's what I was going to add. Because in anthropology and social sciences, we talk about what are called participant observers. So Nicario is a participant observer. In other words, he's observed the migration phenomenon in his own country and in the United States. He's been a participant, but not only a participant looking at something, but really feeling it, as he says. He himself has been stopped many times on the road as he goes to one art festival or another by the migra, by the INS or ICE or whatever, asking him for his papers, etc., because he looks like he's a migrant, and he is. He happens to be a U.S. citizen, but in other words, he suffers on a daily basis, not every day, not everywhere, clearly, but has suffered the same kinds of issues and problems that he depicts in those retablos, in those art pieces. And that is, I think, in great part where coming from within, the power of those works comes. That's one day.
Thank you.
Ya, es verdad. Gracias, Steve.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Additionally, what do you think that Americans who are here now can do to help support immigrants and people who are immigrating now?
This is for Nicario, this question?
This is a general question.
Okay.
Michael.
Steve, would you like to say
No,
that?
Michael.
I think that we all have to become more politically active. I think that we need to point to the positive aspects of immigration in this country. We've forgotten about that. You know, I hate to get political, but a couple of weeks ago, President Trump declared on a tweet that he was ending immigration. I thought, you can't, that's like ending the country. You know, this is a country of immigrants, right? You can't do that. And so we have to, as people who care about this country and the traditions of this country, what we have to do is think about many ways to talk about the positive contributions of immigrants every day. And I think that we can all do that, right? So that would be my general answer to that. Maybe others would like to add too.
Many of the people who are keeping us alive and keeping us in good health.
Yes.
In this tremendous virus pandemic that we have happen to be immigrants. And I fear that many of them are undocumented immigrants who may have all kinds of problems not being able to have the help that we have from them as citizens and whatever else.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate all of you all being here today. A few folks have asked if the webinar will be available to view later to share with friends, and it will be.
Okay.
We're going to process those videos in the next few days and have them up on our website and on our Facebook page for the Newburyport Literary Festival. We really appreciate all of your time. Panelists, thank you so much for being here, and participants, thank you so much for being here. Stay safe where you are and have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you,
Thank you very much,
everybody.
Leslie. It
Thank
was
you.
great. Thank you.